So here's to the strong women for all they've endured. I am who I am today.
Incoming! Floater incoming!
Floater incoming now!
You washed up.
Sorry?
Welcome to the island of discarded women, my friend.
I used to be somebody. Are you that woman on the radio?
Your island job is peladora de papas.
Sorry, what?
Potato peeler, 87% match for your skills.
Okay, that's not. Anyway, what is the second best match then?
Host of the Island Podcast.
Are you kidding me? No, see, that's me. That's perfect for me. Hey, Shanan.
Hi, Sue.
Wow, isn't it a gorgeous, breezy summer night here on the beach?
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. So, okay, tomorrow, Shanan, is June 14th, which according to my calendar is Flag Day.
Flag Day.
Flag Day.
June
Flag
14th,
Day.
1777, the
Right.
first American flag was designated as the official flag.
Yeah. Okay, so my question would be, is there a flag that you fly on Flag Day?
No. Wait, what?
Yeah,
No,
no.
you just fly the Stars and Stripes one to celebrate.
Okay, all right. This seems like a
Flag
missed
Day.
opportunity to bring a brand new flag up. I didn't really grow up honoring Flag Day. Did you? Was
no,
a thing
no.
for you?
But I was born on July 3rd, so flags were a big part.
That's a big flag
my
time.
birthday.
That's a really big flag time.
Yeah, I usually had flags on my cake and red, white, and blue decorations, and of course fireworks. And I knew, of course.
Wait, you had fireworks on your cake?
No, well, maybe.
Yeah.
It was the 70s. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But I was aware that the fireworks, cake, or in the street weren't just for me, but
Oh,
still.
right.
It was
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
special. But I still demand sparklers for my
Oh.
birthday. to
Sparklers.
this day. And outside of the 4th of July,
Yes.
the American flag was always really prominent in my home. My
Oh.
dad, uncles, cousins, they served, and I learned about how the flag should be handled, that it should never touch the ground,
Yeah.
and needed to be disposed of in a special way.
Right.
And I watched the flag folded in honor and handed to my aunts and my mom and at their funerals. So it humbled me.
Yeah. Right,
And I know
right,
that
right,
you
right.
can't alter the flag,
Okay.
by the way. That's a big one.
Yeah.
You know, you can't splash a guy's face on it or
No.
change one of the red lines
Right.
to blue. Our flag is not an advertisement.
No.
But the MAGAs have taken our flag and made it in their own image. And I got to say, that infuriates me.
Yeah, I know, it's tough.
Because the American flag has become a dog whistle, and that breaks me.
Yeah.
Because it's so disrespectful. But they keep moving the goalposts on this idea of what is right and wrong, and patriotism is now defined as failing to fall in line with them.
Yeah.
So, for example, men and women served this country so that we can protest.
Right.
So
right.
that we can take a knee when we honor the flag. In 2016, when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, he asked a retired Green Beret
Right.
the most respectful way of peaceful protest. And they decided to kneel rather than sit.
Right,
It was
right.
stated that kneeling in posture was like a flag at half-mast when we mark a tragedy.
Right.
And the right called Kaepernick's peaceful protest, one that is allowed in a free society, disrespectful and an abomination.
Right.
But I think attacking the Capitol and threatening to lynch people is an abomination.
Yeah, that's an abomination.
No matter
Right,
how many
yes.
flags you
yes,
fly.
Yes.
And I think it's an abomination to keep changing the American flag with this line and that, connecting it to hateful causes to America, full stop. Because I can't tell you the number of times that I will see Trump flags flying above the American flag.
Right.
Which was another thing that I learned was not okay.
No,
I mean, flags have meaning, and that gesture, Trump above America, speaks volumes. So we have to take the flag back.
Yeah,
we really
we
do.
we do.
And by the way, I
We
looked
do.
it up. There's a flag code.
Yes.
U.S.
retake
code, yeah,
flag back.
please.
Yes. Retake flag back. Yes.
The flag code is U.S. code 700, to be exact.
700.
But I should say, who do these patriots justify to facing the flag? I mean, are you ready for how they do that? The blue line flag does not violate the U.S. flag code because it only resembles the American flag.
No. What?
Wait.
No.
What are we talking about?
No, we're talking about flags. Okay, all right.
But I love sparklers.
I know. Who doesn't love sparklers? Okay, here, let me just tell you my connection with the flag. Mm-hmm. Truth be told, I barely notice it's even flying anymore. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm so used to seeing it in front of car dealerships and malls that I don't even notice it. With one very big exception. when the flag is half-mast. I notice that every time. Every time. I might be driving down a freeway or I'm going for a walk and I see an American flag at half-mast, and my immediate reaction is, whoa, wait a minute. What are we, what happened? What am I missing? Remind me, who are we honoring? Who? And then I remember, oh, that's right. That's right, those first responders that were killed last week. Or, oh, that's right, Rosalind Carter just died. Mm-hmm. And for that moment, for that one moment, my mind, my focus, and my attention goes to those people or the victims of that tragedy. And for that moment of awareness of this sort of collective mourning, I am so grateful for our flag and this long history of lowering it to half-mast to honor and pay tribute. I'm very moved by that. So yes, we have to take the flag back. And yes, I think we start by calling out Alito and his wife, Martha Ann, for all this crazy flag shit they're doing and lying about, okay? Okay, first, that upside-down American flag thing, right? He says she's responsible for all the flag activity at their house.
Well, she owns half the house,
right.
Has the right to do what she wants,
right.
and she's a private citizen
right.
with her own First Amendment rights, which he respects.
Right, and he never sees the flag.
Nope. He's really not known as a flag seer.
No, not a flag seer.
No.
Because I guess he drives in through the back alley to get to their house. I mean, I don't know. Right?
And he says, and I believe Alito,
right.
he says it's not about January 6th.
Oh, no.
I mean, she hung the flag upside down just days after the insurrection because she was distraught over an incident with some neighbors.
Right. But the neighbors say she started it, and her timeline doesn't even match up.
Well, she's obviously not aware of Flag Code 700.
Oh, clearly not. Okay, and then in Alito's letter to the Senate explaining why he will not recuse himself from any Supreme Court cases having to do with January 6th at all, he says that once he was made aware of the upside-down flag, he, quote, begged her to take it down, and she refused.
Oh, no, he's a victim.
He's a victim because he has no say on flags, because she paid for half the house. And at their house, I guess you get flag rights based on how much you pay for stuff. Right?
Then when the second flag surfaced at their vacation home, he said that, no, this one wasn't a Christian nationalist flag.
No.
She just liked it because it had a pretty tree on it.
Yeah, right. And he really couldn't do anything about that flag because she paid for all of that house with her own money.
Because money equals rights.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We already know that. Okay, first of all, are we not hearing a little way too much about their marriage? Just a little kind of an ew territory, right? Second, he continues to use her as cover, right? For the fact that he is blatantly and unabashedly in bed with the ultra-rights agenda. I'm sorry, but he is, okay? Yeah.
I hate him.
Okay, all right, so Shanan, initially I felt bad for her. I did, I felt bad for her. I mean, the whole thing kind of smelled of like spousal abuse or something, I don't know. And then the recordings came out.
Yeah.
And she's caught on tape saying all sorts of slurs about her neighbors and about the press.
She said the feminazis were after her.
Yeah.
You know, just quoting Rush Limbaugh from like 50 years ago.
I know. And she's so distraught with all the pride flags flying all around her by her neighbors, and she can't stand it. So she's going to design her own flag to respond.
She makes up flags in her head.
Yeah.
She designs them in her
It's
sleep.
like a thing. It's like a thing. Yeah, right. And she wants to create one to show those pride neighbors who's who. Right? Right.
So a white flag with flames all around the word Vergogna.
Right.
It's Italian, she says, meaning shame.
Right. And to be crystal clear in the recording, she starts to spell it out. It's VERGOGNA. Vergogna. I don't know. She didn't do that.
Italian.
But anyway, it's Italian.
Vergogna, meaning shame.
Right. Okay, so I got an idea.
All right.
What about this? What if we...
The feminazis?
Yes, the feminazis. Okay. What if we tell her we love her Vagonia flag idea and that she should please, 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 please make it? Then we buy a bunch and we pass them out to all of her neighbors and tell them to fly it upside down.
Yeah. Which...
Yeah.
Which would read Angogrev.
I know. Doesn't make sense. But wouldn't flying a shame flag upside down mean that you're sending the opposite message?
Yes.
Right?
Like no shame.
Yeah, like
unshame.
Yeah, or like honor, or like respect, or like admiration.
Admiration. ADM.
IRATION. Admiration. What a concept. Spread love and admiration through flags.
Yeah, for flags.
For flags. Oh, yes. Do you know what I think? I think we should celebrate a bunch of admiration flags on Flag Day. Like, what about the pride flag?
Yes.
Let's celebrate the pride flag. Let's do that.
The pride flag
Yes.
was designed in 1978 by San Francisco activist Gilbert Baker at the request of Harvey Milk, California's first openly gay elected official. Gilbert was commissioned to create an image of pride for the gay community, inspired by the lyrics of Judy Garland's Over the Rainbow.
Who knew?
Baker hand-dyed and hand-sewed his rainbow flag, which flew for the first time at the San Francisco Gay Freedom Day in June of 1978.
And June 19th is Juneteenth, commemorating the day that federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people were finally freed 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. And in 2021, thank you, Joe Biden, Juneteenth became the 11th federal holiday.
Yeah. The original flag for Juneteenth was designed in 1997 by activist and founder of the National Juneteenth Celebration Foundation, Ben Haith. Boston-based illustrator Lisa Jean Graff collaborated with Ben to bring his vision to life. The red and blue colors with white stars and starburst symbols represent liberty and freedom and were deliberately chosen by Haith to showcase that African Americans were Americans even while enslaved.
Yes.
In 2007, the date, June 19th, 1865, was added to the flag.
Yes. And then, just this last month, Minnesota dedicated its own brand new state flag. The older flag, which indigenous groups in Minnesota found offensive, included imagery in the state seal which seemed to celebrate the removal of Native Americans.
A new state flag commission was created and over 2,000 design submissions were received. And it made us so mad on Facebook. A concept for the flag with a dark blue Minnesota-style shape, a field of light blue to represent the waters of the Mississippi River, and a white North Star design created by 24-year-old Andrew Precker was ultimately chosen.
Yes, and you know what, Shannon? You know what? That new Minnesota state flag is symmetrical. So no such thing as flying that flag upside down. It works either way.
Yeah! Time for sparklers!
Thank you, Shanan Custer. Thank you, Paul Odegaard. Okay, now please welcome this super cool band, Favorite Girl, singing their brand new single, Favorite Girl.
I wanna get back to what we had at the start of everything. I wanna be that favorite girl that made you wanna sing. But all we ever had is over. I don't wanna run for cover. I wanna be that one and only to someone I start of everything.
Favorite girl. You're my new favorite girls. And Allie. Thank you. Now, Katy, I want to talk to you about how this all started.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to go back to you grew up in London.
Yes.
And according to your website, you've been singing and writing as long as you could remember.
Yeah. Annoying my family, leaving the country and finding new people to annoy.
Yeah, and you eventually made it to the States, and you talk about it in 2010, you picked up the ukulele for the first time.
Yeah, I'd always written songs and written melodies and then kind of collaborated with people. And I think, picking up a different instrument just like makes different brain connections. It's very good for creativity to just try anything different, I think.
And you said it just opened up a whole new world for you.
It did, yeah.
And then you started performing solo and started referring to yourself or through a series of events as the ukulele songbird, the singer of sad songs on a happy instrument.
Yes. Well, a lot of my songs are sad, but then when you play them on the ukulele, it's like, oh, okay. It's not quite so depressing.
Well, you put out some beautiful albums and you've won some songwriting awards. And now, adding to all of that, you're embarking on this new exciting journey with this cool band, Favorite Girl.
Yeah, thank you all for coming tonight. It was like a mad plan that Sue and I cooked up. So
I know.
Thank you for being here.
We're in the tent. We gotta have a band. We have a girl band plus one in the tent.
Plus one.
Plus, you take your melodic pop tunes and you say you amp them up to female-powered rock.
Yeah. Well, I was the only woman in an all-man band. It was my band. It was the Katy Vernon band. But everyone up on stage with me was a guy, and I kept writing more and more kind of like feminist anthems, and it felt a little bit strange to not be playing them with more women.
Yeah.
And so this just feels really right and exciting, and I'm such a fan of everybody in the band, and obviously Paul too. Paul has played with me in my old band, so we've played together for like 10 years at this point.
I know. Well, all right, and now we're going to hear personally from the ukulele songbird herself, Katy Vernon.
Thank you. Staring at a photograph, wishing I could hear you laugh, chasing an echo of a whisper. The voice that read to me each night was part of you that first took flight, been racing time to remember. In the mirror I still see your face, in the smiles of my girls you left a trace. After all these years without a sound, I was so lost until I found 40 seconds of film after 34 years of silence, a way to reel you in, pull you back from the distance. So much of my life I never had a choice, but I never gave up hope that I'd hear my mother's voice. I'd get to hear your voice again, over and over. I put you on a pedestal, only made you seem less real, like someone I could not live up to. But now I see and hear you speak, makes you seem close to me. I found a way to be near you. In the mirror I still see your face, in the smiles of my girls you left a trace. After all these years without a sound, I was so lost until I found 40 seconds of film after 34 years of silence, a way to reel you in, pull you back from the distance. So much of my life I never had a choice, but I never gave up hope that I'd hear my mother's voice. I'd get to hear your voice again, over and over, over and over, over and over.
Katy Vernon.
Thank you.
Katy Vernon. Just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So this song, your mother died when you were 12.
Yeah.
And you talk about in the song about after 34 years of silence, she had done an interview for a TV show,
Yeah.
for a television called Panorama that was sort of like our 60 Minutes here.
Yeah, very much.
And you wondered if it was archived.
Yeah, you know, I would check YouTube every now and then, and, you know, I kept thinking maybe I'll find it sometime, but I didn't know the exact date that it aired. I didn't know the name of the episode. I really kind of knew nothing. I just knew it happened in the early 80s. She died in 84, so that narrowed it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know much else except that I knew that she was on as a parent advocate for my oldest brother, who has very severe mental and physical disabilities. So I kind of knew that much. And then it just dawned on me one day that Panorama was trending because they had done some kind of story on Trump that was not being shown in the US. It was kind of blowing up the BBC.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious, and I thought, well, I wonder, you know, if anyone would like reply to me if I messaged them. So I did, and I told them the very tiny amount that I knew. And the very next morning in my little messenger inbox, there was a message saying, we have footage of Juliet Vernon discussing Peter Vernon from this episode, and we'll send it to you. And I was like, oh, it was crazy.
Yeah, so you're thinking, so 34 years later,
Yeah.
you're hearing her voice again.
Yeah, because we had no recordings. You know, she
Yeah.
was the family photographer, and you know, it was in the old days, so there wasn't a lot of, you know, recordings. And she was the one that kind of did that stuff, so she never recorded herself. And you very much forget the sound of someone's voice,
Yeah,
you know, very
right.
quickly. So yeah, I really missed it, and it was surreal, you know, because then I just had it on my phone, and I was just like, oh my gosh,
There
like,
she is.
it was very emotional listening
Oh,
to it
right,
and
I
watching
bet.
it.
You said it took about 5 years to even write a song about it.
Oh, yeah. So the 34 years, if you're doing the math, that's great. But then it took me a while to write the song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just knew, like, this is a big, important subject matter.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, you know, kind of do it a disservice. And as a songwriter, trying to write something really important and special is like the death of creativity, because I was like, I just want to, you know, have some kind of vision that will just come to me, and I had to just kind of sit with it for a while. And then I had a prompt because I had a show, and the theme was photograph, and I was just like, well, I have a few photographs of my mom, but I have nothing that, you know, is as special as this.
Yes,
So
right,
That
right.
inspired me to actually buckle down and do it.
Yes. Oh, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
You talk about on the interview, she's talking about your older brother Peter,
Yeah.
who was stillborn.
Yeah, he was stillborn, and it's, you know, it's, I mean, this was in the 80s, and it hasn't gotten any easier to talk about. She mentions that he didn't breathe for, you know, over 12 minutes.
Wow.
And he, you know, they kind of threw everything at him to try to save his life, and they did. But, you know, he has very severe cerebral palsy. He's nonverbal. He's still with us. So
Yeah.
he's outlived everybody's expectations. And, yeah, you know, he's obviously very loved and looked after, but it was a really heavy, tough road. You know?
So, speaking of Peter, you were telling me that when you go to visit him, he's still in the UK,
he's still in London. Yeah.
and because he's nonverbal, and you don't see him all the time.
No.
And it's like, does he actually remember who you are?
Yeah, and I've had some really, because I have so much guilt, when you have a sibling with special needs and then you leave the country and, you leave them behind. I carry a lot of guilt about that. But yeah, he absolutely knows me. I can walk in blonde, curly, redhead, any of those things, and I will hear him start laughing. And I never really realized in the excitement of seeing him after a long period that he says cat, cat, cat. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. One day I finally realized he says a K sound and then he doesn't say that again. He can also say the F word. So I don't know how that happened. One of the nurses told me that.
Totally nonverbal.
He can make his needs known. So, yeah. But
interesting.
we do FaceTime every Friday. Every Friday at noon, no matter where I am, we always FaceTime.
And this is a song that Katy has written about Peter, right here, with Paul Odegaard.
With my wonderful friend Paul.
with our male ally.
Yeah. All right, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. When you see my face, you smile. Have you been listening all the while? Do you know me? Can you show me? What are you thinking in there? I hope you know that I care. It's not easy, believe me. Do you know who I am? If you do you wonder where I am? Do you know who I am? If you do you wonder? I wish we had some way to share. Ask myself, but I don't dare. What's inside you? What can I do? Do you know who I am? If you do you wonder where I am? Do you know who I am? If you do you wonder? It's not easy, believe me. It's not easy, believe me. Do you know who I am? If you do you wonder where I am? Do you know who I am? If you do you wonder?
Katy Vernon, Paul Odegaard, thank you so much. Katy, thank you so much. Now please welcome our guest storyteller for tonight, Jen Santoro Rotty. Jen, come on up.
I grew up in a very middle-class, white suburb of Minneapolis. As many people in the white majority do, I gave zero thought to ethnicity. I was adopted through Catholic Charities at just 3 months old by Mike and Barb Santoro. Now, this was 1967, when it was common for adoption agencies to match the coloring of a baby with the adoptive parents. I had dark curly hair and a slightly darker complexion, just like my father Mike, who was Italian. My mother Barb was blonde with fair skin. Catholic Charities explained to them that this kind of color matching helped a child to assimilate and feel more like they belonged in their adoptive family. Now, the adoption agency told my parents very little about my background, only that I was mostly French and Irish. Birth parents were in college at the U of M, and if it weren't for the fact that he was Jewish and she was Catholic, they probably would have stayed together. Okay, well, I didn't feel like I really needed to know anything more. There were a few things in my childhood that made me feel different, such as this crazy curly hair and the fact that no one in my family knew what to do with it. My mom used to plaster my hair down with dippity-doo and tape my bangs overnight to try to tame them down. Yeah, that didn't work. But the next morning, they were just as unruly as ever. Consequently, I hated my hair for a majority of my life. Now, my mom would tell me how tan I would get as a baby. She would describe how black I would get when she'd set me in my playpen outside and how embarrassing it was. Now, I heard that story often, but never gave it much thought. I was a happy kid. I loved to laugh. I had an energetic spirit and felt very secure. My mom and dad were good people. I never felt any different because I was adopted. I was just told that I was special because I was chosen.
I know that they loved me, told me that they chose me. I was the center of their world, the precious little girl. Maybe we don't look the same. We share love, we share a name. It's never mattered much to me, my forever family.
When I first got bitten by the performing bug, I was cast in the role of Annie in a musical review in 5th grade. Not long after Annie, a neighborhood bully called me an orphan. I'm not even sure if he knew I was adopted, but I took that taunt to mean I didn't really belong to the family that was raising me. In high school, I was cast as Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady. Again, a very white character. First time, though, I ever really noticed that people saw me differently was along my path as a professional singer and actor. Throughout my life, people were always asking me, "What are you?" When I got into on-camera acting, I was consistently cast as a person of color. Whether it was Latina, mixed race, Middle Eastern, Jewish, I quickly realized I was checking a box in terms of diversity in those projects. There were even times when makeup artists would put darker makeup on me than I would have put on myself. It was odd to me, but hey, you know what? I was working more than a lot of my friends were at the time, so I just rode the wave.
Maybe we don't look the same. We share love, we share a name. It's never mattered much to me, my forever family.
During my senior year of college in 1989, Catholic Charities called to say my birth parents were looking for me. Unbeknownst to me, the laws involving closed adoptions had changed, allowing birth parents to contact a child they gave up if the child was 19 years of age or older without having to go through the adoptive parents. Consequently, adopted children could now contact a birth parent upon turning 19 without getting their adoptive parents' permission. Meeting my birth family unraveled a series of unexpected truths. I was not only part of this incredibly large family on both sides, all of a sudden there were birth parents and half-siblings and aunts and uncles and cousins, and I was completely overwhelmed. After all, until a year prior, I hadn't even thought I would meet my birth parents or any members of my birth family. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Run up and hug them and jump for joy, as I'd seen so many people do in these types of reunions on TV talk shows? I first met my birth mother and my half-sister, whose name is, wait for it, Jen. I know, right? I guess I was meant to be a Jennifer. Meeting them was odd. We sort of stared at each other, wondering, where do we begin? To be clear, my birth parents were never together. They did search for me together, but hadn't had any connection since before my birth. It turned out that my birth father was the one who initially pushed to meet me. But because he wasn't listed on my original birth certificate, first he had to find my birth mother and get permission to legally look for me. My birth mother was indeed Catholic, French, Irish, and many other white European nationalities. My birth father was indeed Jewish. The unexpected truths here was that they were not both students at the U of M. They had only been together a short time, and he took off when he found out she was pregnant. Not quite the romantic love story that was told to my parents by the adoption agency. But I was happy to see I shared physical characteristics with my birth father, such as our dark curly hair, darker complexion, and brown eyes. And after meeting both of my birth parents, I became more comfortable in my skin, finally knowing who my people were. I was comfortable being the half-Jewish, half-Catholic biological daughter of these two people. It felt good to understand my ethnicity and look in the mirror and comprehend why I looked the way I looked. "23 years later, when I was 45, I decided to do a DNA test through Ancestry.com. I just thought it would be fun and interesting to see what the results showed, even though I thought I already knew. It was the beginning of the availability of these tests, and I thought it would be more like a party trick rather than something that had the potential to blow up my world. I got my results back. My tests revealed I was a virtual color wheel of ethnicities. Yes, some of the largest countries and regions of origin in my results did include plenty of Europe. But then there were the African countries and Central and South American countries. Doing the math breakdown, and I'm terrible at math, I was stunned to learn that my total African heritage was 17%. My total Latino heritage, including indigenous peoples in Spain, was 25%. Yeah, I was still white, but just white-ish. These revelations created an identity whiplash. My subtle search for belonging was uncomfortably unsettled once again. The results, however, did not sit well with my birth father, because his results were very different. He had done his tests around the same time as well, but with a different company, and his results said he was 98% European Jewish. My results said 1% European Jewish. So we got another test from a different company, and the results were the same. He started saying to me that he didn't think he was my biological father. What? I mean, there's no way. Now keep in mind, at this time when we took these DNA tests, I had known him for 23 years. I had relationships with his 5 other children, my half-siblings. And as far as I was concerned, he was my birth father. I wanted to prove his suspicions wrong, so I demanded a paternity test. Test results came back. He was not my birth father. So half of what I thought I knew to be my blood relatives for 23 years just went out the window. My birth father quickly exited my life. My not birth father, because that's what I call him now, my not birth father, was a wealthy man and regularly paid to fly me and my family to his homes in California, Kentucky, and Florida. We even planned a trip to Israel. Well, the paternity test came in literally 48 hours before my husband and I were to leave for that trip. Oh yeah. We still went on that trip though, and awkward doesn't even begin to describe it. But hey, I mean, we weren't going to pass up a free trip to Israel, and we really didn't have to see much of my not birth father anyway.
Ooh, am I where I belong? I thought I'd found my truth. Turns out I was wrong.
I still had to share the news of the paternity to my birth mother. That the man she named as my birth father was not. I mean, how could this happen? When I told her the news, she was as stunned as I was. As I was sitting there anticipating her reaction, she immediately revealed to me that it could only have been one other person, and it was only one night. She told me she ventured into the tryst because she thought she was already pregnant. She doesn't remember his name, only that he had dark skin, curly hair, and might have said he was Jamaican. So here I am with all this new information, and I'm trying to make sense of it. After hearing this, I started to really look at my DNA results with more detail. The pieces seem to fall together. The mixture of ethnicities in my DNA test aligns with the generally Afro-European descent of someone from Jamaica. The skin, the hair, the way people see me. I guess it all makes sense. Several of my friends of color were like, duh, I mean, we knew it was on the tree, just look at you. Funny how I was the last to know. In 2017, around 3 years after the results from the DNA tests, I was cast in a musical called In the Heights at the Ordway Theater in St. Paul, in which the entire cast were people of color. The show was even billed as an all Latinx cast. I entered that production carrying with me some of the same ethnic and cultural uncertainty. Questions floated around in my head like, am I wrong for taking up space from the actual people of color? Am I a faker or a fraud? As I got to know my castmates, especially those who could be very white passing, I found some similar sentiments amongst them. There were even adoptees who grew up in the same white culture that I did and had many of the same questions. I suddenly felt like I belonged. So now, I identify first and foremost as an artist and as the happy, social, and enthusiastic person I was as a child. However, I do not identify as white, or at least not merely white. Today, mixed race or other are the boxes I check. In terms of ethnic identity and sense of belonging, I'm more on solid ground than I've ever been. And I attribute much of that sense of security to my husband, Kevin, who has always accepted me just as I am. And he is here. Yay. And like me, he was shocked by my DNA results too, but he helped me change my belief that I didn't fit in completely anywhere. He countered with the idea that because I seem to be able to easily interact in multiple worlds, I serve as sort of a bridge between them. I now see that as a wonderful gift. In addition, as my children have grown, I have 2 daughters now, 22 and 25. I have been able to see my physical characteristics mirrored in them, creating a new clan of belonging among us. Both girls have been so supportive of my journey and are fiercely proud of our eclectic DNA makeups. And now, 12 years after getting those DNA results, I finally started to look at the matches that Ancestry.com occasionally provides. Genetic matches to people on my actual paternal side. These potential relatives and ancestors are a rainbow of humanity. They're white, black, and Latino presenting, and everything in between. And I am all of them rolled into one. It's taken years, decades in fact, but I've gone from feeling like I don't fit in anywhere culturally to feeling more like I fit in everywhere. It's a sense of belonging that just might be the best kind of feeling ever.
I am not my father. I am not my mother. I am not my sister. I am not my brother. I'm everyone, and all of us rolled into one. This dark-eyed girl who never understood when she was wrong. All the years that I have felt I don't fit anywhere. The more I learn, the more I know that I fit everywhere.
Jen Santoro Rotty. Jen Santoro Rotty. Katy Vernon. Katy, thank you so much. Thank you, Jen, for sharing that amazing story. Briefly, starting July 1st, they've changed the rules.
Yeah, anybody who is adopted in Minnesota
Yeah.
can get their original birth certificate. End of story. So it's cool. I mean, I think it proposes to blow up a lot of worlds, but
And is it true that the
It
birth
could.
parents can say how or if they want to be contacted, but they can't deny the right of the child to find the birth certificate and find their name?
right. So if they're back in the day, a lot of times the birth mother whose name is on there and the birth father isn't always identified. But if they are, then you've got two names to go on, and that's huge, especially when you're searching and you're searching from DNA tests or something, and that's my situation right now, because I had this whole story, the whole thing, published not too long ago, and weirdly, a friend of mine from high school contacted me and said, hey, I'm an adoptee too, and I found my birth parents, and now I've found people for all these people. So he's kind of become the go-to guy to know how to search for relatives.
Searcher.
And he even started a website. It's called reunionconnections.org. He's not asking for any money. It's just a passion project for him. So
He's trying to connect you with people on your paternal
he's
side.
given me phone numbers, and I just haven't quite gotten. They're like of cousins, but you know how that goes. It's like
I think there'll be to be continued on this
Maybe,
story.
yeah.
To be continued. Jen, thank you so much
Thank you,
again.
Sue.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Favorite Girl's going to come back up and sing a song, but real quick, Katy, so the song that you're going to do next is called Shine.
Yes.
And you wrote this in 2020 for a collaboration with a lot of other Minnesota artists for Me Too Minneapolis.
Yes, so we were all invited to submit a track, and it could be something that you already had, but they kind of encouraged us to come up with new music if we wanted to. And I thought what I would like to do is take my bad experiences maybe within the music industry and shine a light on the fact that, I've overcome those. I'm still going. A lot of people kind of said I wasn't quite what they needed, and what they were looking for. And I kept going anyway. And, shine a light on other women performers. And if you have any kind of platform or spotlight, invite other people along.
Invite other people
Which
in.
is what you do so beautifully.
Okay, well, we're trying.
You do
We're
it.
trying. Yes, right. Favorite Girl and Shine.
Choices made in dark rooms with the same old boys club rules. Always closing the door, saying they don't need you anymore. It's time to shine. It's time to shine. Voices with all the power choose who to shower with their praise. It's tempting to ask the price, don't wanna owe them my whole life. It's time to shine. It's time to shine. If I get 1 foot on that ladder, start to feel like I matter. You can bet I'm gonna reach on out behind. Take your hand, lift you up so you can shine. I'm not riding any coattails, I put the wind in my own sails. Gonna steer my own course, I ride or die on my own horse. It's time to shine. It's time to shine. If I get 1 foot on that ladder, start to feel like I matter. You can bet I'm gonna reach on out behind. Take your hand, lift you up so you can shine. It's time to come out of the shadows and shine a light on what we know. It's time to rise up from the fire. Your own wings next to mine will fly much higher. If I get 1 foot on that ladder, start to feel like I matter. You can bet I'm gonna reach on out behind. Take your hand, lift you up so you can shine. Take your hand, lift you up so you can shine. Take your hand, lift you up so you can shine.
Favorite girl, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now please welcome my guest for the conversation, Rose McGee. Come on up, Rose. Come on up. Hi, Rose. Hi. Thanks for coming. I know you had a lot going on today.
Well, it's an honor being here and just fantastic.
I know, everybody's
Just
fantastic.
fantastic,
Everybody's
yeah.
fantastic. Whew. All right, I'm going to go through a quick bio first. You founded Sweet Potato Comfort Pie in 2014. You're marking your 10th year this year of
Yes.
the org. You're a well-known facilitator. You're one of Minnesota's 50 over 50. You've been an officer with the Minnesota Humanities Center. You've won countless awards and fellowships, including a 2019 Bush Fellowship, the NAACP Outstanding Service Award. You've been cited as an influential change maker and leader in Reader's Digest, Guidepost, The Washington Post. You are the playwright of Kumbaya, the Juneteenth story. Speaking of Juneteenth, yes, which tells the story and honors the holiday. It has been performed across the state of Minnesota since 1996, with an upcoming production of this play happening here at Northrop on June 21st.
Yes.
You are also the author of the newly released children's book, Can't Nobody Make a Sweet Potato Pie Like Our Mama. It's adorable. It's a wonderful, it's beautifully illustrated. You have to go get it. Okay, so I'm just going to start at the beginning. You're born in Jackson, Tennessee, on a farm, and you're raised by your grandmother and your great-grandmother. Yeah. You know, she has a TEDx talk, and I love there's at one point in your TEDx talk you say, "I grew up old because of being around all these older women," right?
That's right. Yeah.
And you talked about how you, as a child, you asked a lot of questions, and they were great listeners.
Yes, they were. Yeah.
And you picked cotton and you picked strawberries. You also talk about attending a segregated school.
Yes.
And
Our
when
schools were all segregated
at that time. And then when you were in high school, the county fair finally was integrated.
Yes.
And how was that, the change?
Well, my cornmeal muffins won first place, even with the white kids.
And you were saying that before it was integrated, the first week of the fair was whites only.
Yes.
The second week was black people could come.
Right.
But all the contests would happen in the first week.
Yeah.
And so then when it was integrated, it was like, oh, y'all are doing contests?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you got to win. Yeah. Did you make up the recipe for the cornbread meal? No.
Cornmeal muffin made from cornmeal.
Yeah.
Or cornbread.
Did you make up the recipe?
No.
Did you create it, I mean?
It was something that I learned, and then you start adding your own stuff.
Yeah.
So I can't remember exactly what I was adding, but probably a little more buttermilk or a little more something.
Sure.
And then later on, of course, I started adding sweet potatoes in my cornbread. Have you had that?
No. Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sweet potatoes in your cornbread?
Yeah, sweet potato cornbread with cayenne pepper and garlic.
Oh, okay.
It's
We got to try
awesome.
that. We got to
Yes.
try that. After getting your undergraduate degree from Lane College, which is a HBCU.
Right. Historically Black College and University.
And university, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you got a master's degree at Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm just sort of heading to where you are now. You worked for the airlines, United Airlines in Denver for a while. And then you ended up here in Minneapolis. Your dad lived here. Your father lived here. And you would spend summers here.
I did.
And you got a job with IBM.
Yes.
And you said IBM moved you around a lot.
So therefore, IBM meant what? Do you remember what I told you?
I've been moved.
Yes.
Or is there other ways of saying it?
That was fine.
Okay, yeah. I've been moved.
I've been moved.
Well, you said when you first moved here, it was cold. And you started thinking about your grandmother's sweet potato pie.
Yes, and actually that was in Denver.
Oh, that was in Denver.
That was
okay.
in Denver. And
It's cold in Denver, too.
It's
yeah.
cold in Denver,
Sure.
too, but not like here. And I woke up one Sunday morning, and I had this hankering to make a blackberry cobbler and a sweet potato pie. Didn't know how to make either. And I called her, and she said, okay, you're going to do that? Because she knew I didn't cook. And other than
What about
cornbread,
the cornmeal muffins?
well, yeah.
Hello?
That's it. Because they did the cooking. I had other chores, though.
Sure.
Plenty of chores. But my grandmother said, all right, you're going to do that. And I said, yes. Can you give me the recipe? And I call her Mama. And she says, baby, I ain't got no recipe.
Yeah.
I said, well, how can you not have a recipe? She said, because it's in my head. So obviously it didn't transfer too well from my head to hers because they were a disaster. And it was so embarrassing, I just threw them away.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Threw them away.
Okay.
And for some reason, I felt compelled to try it again. And I did. The blackberry cobbler was still a mess. But the sweet potato pie wasn't bad. Yeah. And the next thing I knew, it was getting better and better. And you know how people will ask you to bring something, if it's the potato salad or the fried chicken or the whatever. So people started asking me to bring the sweet potato pie. And that's how it got started.
Yeah. You referred to it as the sacred dessert of Black culture.
I did.
Tell us about that.
Well, the whole thing about the sweet potato pie, as well as many cultural foods, people who were enslaved, who were in captivity, weren't allowed to eat, the great parts of things. So they tend to use the leftovers and whatever.
Yeah.
So these root things became the vegetables and the fruit and whatever else it is that nobody really wants, all of it.
Yeah.
And the sweet potato became one of those things. And people who came over from West Africa saw this tubular thing, and it reminded them of what they referred to as a yami. And they pronounced it a yami. And anybody from the South? After a while in the South, we just cut things off. So the next thing you know, a yami becomes what? Yam. And really, you can talk to some folks and they'll say, I would not make a sweet potato pie unless I was using yams or unless I'm using sweet potatoes, when in fact, they're all sweet potatoes. Yeah. Scientifically, they're all sweet potatoes. It's just that it depends on where it's grown, and there are over 200 varieties.
Oh, seriously?
Of sweet potatoes, yeah. And when I used to sell the pies professionally many years ago, I'd go into the wholesale place, and here these potatoes are in boxes next to each other. These over here are called yams. These over here are called sweet potatoes. These over here might be more expensive. Those are not. And I said to the salesperson one day, I said, do you realize, let's just look, come over here. Take this out, hold them, and I'm showing him. I said, do you not see these look the same? He says, lady, I just sell them. I can't do anything. And you look at them and you see, some of them might have been grown in Mississippi, South Carolina, the Carolinas, and Georgia and Florida, Louisiana, real big for sweet potatoes. So anyhow, trying to tell somebody, well, it doesn't matter if you use a sweet potato or a yam. Just don't even bother to go there with them. Just let them think that it has to be this. And it's the same thing with eggs. So when you start putting those ingredients, how many of you bake, and you only bake with brown shelled eggs? No bakers, I guess, in here. Not diehard bakers.
Nobody's raising their hand. Nobody bakes here. No, they don't bake here.
Oh, there's one back there.
Okay, one back there.
And you do know it's a race thing with those brown eggs, right?
Yeah. Doug's a big baker.
But it's a race thing with those brown eggs. Do you know about the brown eggs?
Tell us.
He's pointing. You know, right? It's about the ears.
It's about the what?
It's the ears. The chickens.
Of the chickens?
Yes.
What?
Did you know chickens had ears?
Do the eggs come out of their ears?
No.
The brown ones?
But the chickens with dark ears are the ones that produce brown shelled eggs.
Oh.
It's a race thing. You think you got a thing going? The chickens, honey. So here you have the chickens who maybe, and that's why if you think about where I grew up, there were the Rhode Island Reds and the Dominic, which are the black and white ones. So that's why everybody had brown shell eggs. When I do demos with it, I said, we've all got to get together. Even when we meet, we must integrate. So I pull the white shell eggs over, and I put the brown shell eggs over, and I break them up, and we have a good old time making them. Yes, starts. But the sweet potato pie is, as far as I'm concerned, the sacred dessert of Black culture.
So how you got to this organization, so you were making pies at one point and you were sort of a second job. You were selling them at the farmers markets. And in 2014, as you're watching TV and you're watching the unrest around the murder of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and you felt moved to do something, but what? You weren't sure what you could do.
I didn't know. I was sitting there like most of you watching this unrest in Ferguson. And so many of these things happen in the summer and it's hot. And I can remember how upset people were that this child's body was just laying there in the street as hot as it was.
For hours. Yeah, for hours.
And then, the people were very upset and unrest, and the typical protesting that can happen happened when things get burned down and looting takes place. And I'm wondering, what can I do? What can I do? I know I'm not going to go there and be in the middle of it. I've been there, done that in my younger days. And this voice came to me. And being a woman of faith, I paid attention to it, but I didn't like it at all. And it said, make some pies and take them down there. And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing. I really did. And I just sat there for a moment, right there in my room in front of the TV. And it came back very clearly, make some pies and take them down. And I got up, went into the kitchen, and just walked around in the kitchen for a while. And it came again. And that's the third time, isn't it?
Right.
And I said, all right. And I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I just stood there for a moment, and pretty soon it was clear. I'm going to make some pies and take them to Ferguson. And I contacted my son, who was in town at the time, and said, I'm going to Ferguson, Missouri. Do you want to go with me? My daughter knew she couldn't go on the time that I was looking to go. And my son said, are you crazy? What's wrong with you? And finally, he agreed to go. So made about 30 pies, put them in the trunk of the car, and I made a phone call in Illinois to see who's down there in that area that you can point me to. And they pointed me to this pastor. So this pastor said, yeah, come on down. I'd be happy to guide you on one condition. And that is, I have a parishioner that I'd like you to visit. And I said, all right. And he says he's not well, and I just think it would be nice if you brought him a pie, because I hear you make good pies. So by the time I got there and met this pastor and followed him over to this home, he said, when we got there, my parishioner has passed away. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. So we get to the doorstep, and there are two people, a man and a woman, about my age, and he introduces them to me. This lady has pies, sweet potato pie, and she wanted to bring it to you. And first I asked if it was all right, to receive it. And the woman grabs the pie, and this was her brother, it turns out.
Oh.
And he said, wait a minute. He said, us, give it to us, and you just took it. So they're standing there bantering over the pie. And what gave me joy at that moment was seeing the two of them.
Yes.
They're in mourning, but for that moment, they had gone back to a childhood thing, and they were both very happy, and it just lifted my spirit. And that's sort of what happened throughout that trip.
You talk about meeting a young woman who had gone to school, who knew Michael Brown. Had gone to school.
Yeah. When I finally got there to the site, you know how it is, because you've seen them here now, the makeshift memorial that was in the street.
Yeah, right.
And I saw her standing there, and she was fussing at Michael. You should have stayed at home. I don't know why do you. Yeah. And so I walked over to her, beautiful young girl, and I said, you knew Michael? And she says, yeah, we grew up together. He lived right there. So she's pointing in back where his grandmother lived. And I said, well, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I've got sweet potato pie. Would you like one? That's the look she gave me. So I went to the trunk of my car, got one, brought it back to her. She opened the box, and I don't got to tell you, it surprised me too. The aroma came out, and it smelled so good.
Oh, right.
And then she looked at it. She says, it's so pretty. And I said, and they say it tastes good. And then she just fell in my arms and started crying.
Wow.
And from that point on, that's kind of how those stories went.
Right. You said it changed your world.
Well, yeah.
And you came back and thought, and you went through a series of steps, but basically you started this nonprofit, with a mission to bring people together and to build community, as we were saying before, one pie at a time. To date, the organization has delivered over 4,000 pies.
Well,
to
more
people.
so, I like to always correct that and say,
okay,
it's these volunteers, it's the people who...
No, I know it's not just you doing
right.
it. Yes,
and
of course.
It's
your
the people who like
right.
to... Well, no, even people at home.
Yeah.
Because when COVID broke and not knowing what to do, and then after Mr. George Floyd's murder, I went online and I just started asking people online to make pies.
Yeah.
And the recipe...
You put your recipe on your website.
Oh, yeah. The recipe, anybody can have the recipe. And I'll tell everyone, you can give that same recipe to 10 people, and all 10 of those pies are going to taste different. It's amazing how that works.
Well, you're also saying that that you discovered early on that your grandmother's recipe, which you finally figured out, makes 2 pies.
Yeah.
So it became sort of this thing about, you make a pie and then you give a pie. In 2015, you delivered 56 pies to the Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston. Every pie is delivered with a poem that's written by your daughter, who is now the mayor of Golden Valley.
She is.
Yes.
She is.
Yes.
Thank you.
And for Standing Rock protesters in 2017, they created their own special blessings for the pie. Also, you're sensitive to cultural heritages and dietary restrictions. The Tree of Life Synagogue Massacre in Pittsburgh in 2018. You worked with Jewish school kids in St. Louis Park to make kosher pies that were blessed by rabbis. And the kids wrote poems for those pies.
They did.
And one thing you told me about that story is when you went, because you usually go to these tragedies with the pies and be sort of the ambassador. While you're in Pittsburgh, with Tree of Life Synagogue, a young, unarmed 17-year-old Antoine Rose was shot and killed by police.
We were having dinner in a Jewish home of one of the hosts, and she asked me if I was familiar with the Antoine Rose story. And I was, because at that time, so many of them were happening at once, it seems. Right. And it hadn't fazed me. Oh, that's right. This was here. Yeah. And so she made arrangements for me to go over to meet this mother, and we took a pie to her. Yeah. And it was really a very, very painful time when we were there, because it was February, and in March they were getting ready to go to trial, the officer who had killed him. And she was extremely stressed. So she was so appreciative of the pie, especially when we told her why she was getting the pie. Yeah. And it was sad, to hear that verdict certainly didn't go as was expected either.
You talk about a lot of the cards and letters that you get from people that have received the pies. And one in particular was for one of the staffers that was killed in the explosion at Minnehaha Academy here in town, and you gave a pie to his wife, and she sent you this beautiful letter about how much comfort it brought. And what I love about that story is it's sort of, the mass tragedies, the single tragedies, they're all tragedies, but it's bringing comfort through the pie, reaching out, making a gesture, and having people receive it is so, it's so unique and it's so wonderful. NBC came and followed you to George Floyd Square at one point. In 2020. You can see it online. You can catch it, the story. It's at NBC News. And it was June in 2020. So it was just after a lot of the unrest and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they show you going up to a young man asking if he wants a pie. Yeah. And then you tell him it's a sweet potato pie. And he's like, oh, that's my favorite. Yeah. It's such a sweet little moment that's captured in that video. And then you said the cameraman... The NBC cameraman. Tell us that story.
Yeah, because there were two, and one of them had actually been attacked by the police officers, and
had been injured.
It was really sad to see. And then I offered him a pie, and he was like, "You're giving me a pie?" I said, "You deserve a pie."
It's literally one pie at a time. I think it's just amazing. It's just amazing.
It is. Let me say this, because I want people to realize that what we do with our pies is to try and foster connectedness.
Yes, right.
Not to further the divide. Another relationship that came after the killing of Jamar Clark over North, and we were there giving pie to community and giving pie to family members, and there was just so much divisiveness that happens when these things happen. And here we are giving a pie. I'm trying to give a pie to a police officer. And it's so interesting because I had just mentioned Vivian Jenkins' name to you when we were talking. She knew this police woman, and because the woman was refusing to take the pie, there was this barricade up keeping the public from being able to attack the police.
The police officer didn't want to take the pie?
No, she didn't. But Vivian knew her. Oh. And Vivian called her name, and she says, "Oh, you should take this pie," and went on and explained it to her. Yeah. And because of her relationship with Vivian, she then turned to me and trusted me, and she accepted the pie. Wow. Then this voice comes yelling out, "What's that woman doing giving something to the police?" And that ended up being Miss Leslie Redmond. And I don't know how many of you have heard of her, but at the time, I had just met Leslie 2 weeks before because she had been the recipient of a scholarship that was named after my late husband. She was an attorney. And here it is now, 2 weeks later, and she's out here part of the protest, and she's yelling, "Why is that woman?" And then somebody said to her, "That's Rose McGee. She's just giving out pies." "Rose McGee? I know Miss Rose." So she comes charging over to me and she says, "Miss Rose, why are you giving that police that pie? They've been out here and they've been tear gassing us and they've been this and da, 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 da." And about that time, here comes one of the networks and said, "We really want to interview you and understand about the pies." And I said, "That's fine, but you got to interview her too, because we're both here for the same cause. Yeah. We're just doing it differently." Right. And she was so moved by that because she said, "Who would turn over their airtime? Why would you do that?" And we've been joined at the hip ever since.
Wow.
Yep, we have. all of what I've been trying to express is it's about relationships.
It's about relationships.
And when you take time to get to know people, you can get beyond whatever it is that you think you might see on the outside.
That brings up, speaking of NBC and Al Roker's show, Family Style, you get a call from them saying, hey, we want to do a story on you. This is in 2022. Are there any tragedies going on that you're making pies for? And it's like, no, there aren't. Sorry. And which should be a good thing. Shouldn't that be a good thing? No, we don't look for tragedies. Oh, well then, sorry, we're not coming. Then you get a call from your young friend who says, will you teach a bunch of my young women friends how to make sweet potato pies?
Yeah, the next day,
Yeah.
I ran into this young lady, DJ Britt,
Yeah.
and she said, oh, Miss McGee, you need to teach us young women how to make sweet potato pie because we don't know how. I said, I'd love to do that anytime. Then I'm on Facebook looking at this other young lady going through this tragedy because her mother was ill. And all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, I need to bring these young ladies together around this. And then I called
Al Roker people.
back and said, how about this for a story? They loved it. They were here for 3 days.
And you can see it. It's a beautiful piece, and you can see it online. 12 young women, and you're all busy, and everyone's making 3 pies each.
Yes. One to an elder woman, one to a younger woman, younger than themselves, even a child if they wanted to, and one to keep of their own. And so it was about the stories. And there was this moment when we had lunch while the pies were cooling, and they had the most heart-wrenching stories. And those are some of the things that were featured on the Al Roker show.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. You see them all sitting around having a meal, and somebody's in the middle of telling a very emotional, sharing a very emotional moment, and everyone around the table is, you can tell, there's tears, and it's all around the pie. So people have called what you do a ministry, it's a movement, nothing like a sweet potato pie to tell people that they're loved. You say that pie invokes deep nostalgia for family and community. But what I want to know is all this pain at the tragedies that you go to and the grief that you're absorbing. How does that work for you? What does that do for you?
Well, sometimes even sitting here reminiscing on some things because you can't tell it all, and you think about some of the little details that go on with some of the stories, some of the places. When I think about Pittsburgh in particular, and I hear the rabbi, because we were all having dinner, and he was sharing the story about when he had pulled some of his parishioners in the closet for safety.
Yes, right.
And just as they went in the closet, one of the parishioners got shot and fell into the closet, dead.
Yeah.
And they were in there literally not able to breathe.
Right.
Finally, this person left that area who was shooting. And when you hear that kind of situation, and yet there's joy. When you look at how grateful people are when they receive something as simple as this. And as somebody said when we took the pies down to Mother Emanuel Amen Church in Charleston after 13 people were shot while worshiping during Bible study, and 9 of them died. The person who I was meeting said, this is very important what you're doing. I said, well, to me, I'm just bringing pie. And she said, no, what you've given the people in Minnesota an opportunity to do is to do something. She says, we've been receiving money, and that's important. Yes, it is. But this is giving them something to do. So for me, seeing people do things, and when people send me a note and call and say, I'm doing this in my school or in my church or whatever, that brings me joy.
Sure.
And every now and then I have to make my pie too.
Sure.
And I sit there and I will just
Somebody
eat.
needs to give you a pie.
Well, no,
They
I'm
need to give
saying
you a pie.
I will. Sometimes they do, but
Yeah.
every now and then I will make a pie and eat some of it myself because it's
Yes.
giving me comfort.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I'll say, can somebody please take this pie so I don't eat the whole thing?
You said to me on the phone, we were talking about some of this, and you said, you do what you can from the point where you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, because sometimes people think that they can't do something because somebody else does this, and I can't do that.
Right.
You don't have to do that. Just do what you feel.
From the point where you are.
From the point where you are.
Yeah.
I never, ever would have thought that I'd be doing this.
Right. You sign off with the word onward.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that. It's like onward. It feels like a perfect mantra for you, for us, for this world, what you're doing. So I would like to thank you very much, Rose, and say
Well, just a minute.
onward.
Hold it,
onward.
hold it.
It, she's saying.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
You know, I had to bring
that
you.
was my, what?
I had to bring you a
Oh,
pie.
you're bringing me a pie?
Absolutely.
What?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Wait, I have to put my script down. Oh my gosh, look how gorgeous it is! And look, look. She puts these hearts on all the pies. Can everybody see? Can everybody see? Can everybody see? Pie for everybody, or at least 7 people. I don't know.
No, just take a little taste, and everybody. It'll be enough for everybody.
Well, yeah. Rose, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Rose McGee. Thank you. And that's our show, everybody. That's our show. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to Katy Vernon and Favorite Girl. Allie Pikala on guitar, Barb Brynstad on bass, Alsye Emanuel on drums, and our male ally, Paul Odegaard on trumpet. Thank you so much to Jen Santoro Rotty. Thank you, thank you. And Shanan Custer. And thank you to our captioner, Erica Cook, and John Robinson, our engineer, and Lexi Carlson, our crew. And Bonnie Allen, thank you for taking our pictures. Thank you to our volunteers, Suzanne Egley and Doug Anderson, the staff here at Crooner Supper Club. I want to extend a thank you to our sponsors for tonight, Nancy Scott and David O'Connor, Carol and David Larson, and Nancy Hoeing. Please visit our website, www.island_women.com, for information about all of our shows and to listen to our episodes. We will be back very soon with another live Island of Discarded Women. Thank you, everybody. I'm Sue Scott. Good night. Good night.